Welcome back to Fireside Giants. Anthony and I are back to give you some awesome new updates and information. Today, we're going to be doing an awesome quarterback tier listing. So, we're going to talk about what quarterbacks rank in each category: elite, star potential, and a whole bevy of different options. It's going to be really cool. So, we're going to look at each quarterback and why we think they fit into this specific mold. But before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that Anthony and I are going to be playing Madden against each other on Thursday night, and the loser has to eat an extremely spicy pepper. That was the best thing we could come up with. I think that's pretty fair. And I mean, I've never really played Madden that much, so it could be pretty bad for me. But you never know. The underdog often comes out on top when it's the
Not
Giants.
this time.
Not this time, says
Nope.
Anthony. But we all know what happened. Giants, Patriots, 2007, 2010. Let's see if I can replicate that. Probably not, because Madden's not real life. But I'm going to try my best. It should be exciting and fun. We're going to live stream, and then we're going to upload it with the end results of me or Anthony, probably Anthony, eating a pepper. So it should be a good time, and we're going to try and make some cool new videos like that. So, challenges and whatever it might be, playing Madden and other games. So it should be a really fun time for you guys, and, watch some pain involved with Anthony and me. But back to the video. I hope everyone's doing great, by the way. It's we're kind of nearing this lack of sports. The MMA and UFC has been kind of going for a while now, but the NBA is hopefully going to be returning. Kyrie Irving's trying to stifle that movement, but we'll see what happens. Baseball, once again, is dying, and they're trying to destroy their own sport. Rob Manfred clearly doesn't care about his own game and the evolution of it. And then you have NHL, which is primed to return, and then football. And football is looking like it's going to be okay. Today, we learned that Ezekiel Elliott and a bunch of other Cowboys got coronavirus. To be expected, since they were all partying together. It's kind of ridiculous to me, but at the end of the day, you got to be safe still. It's still a very real problem in society, so make sure you're still looking after your loved ones and elderly family members. But we hope everyone's staying healthy and doing well, and I want to kind of dive right into the video. Anthony, take it away.
All right, definitely. So we'll just pull up our tier lists here. I've got yours right there, and here's mine. We did have a lot of consensus with the elite quarterbacks, though you had a few more elite quarterbacks than I did. So I don't think that Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady at this point in their career are still elite quarterbacks. I think they're borderline elite. I think Rodgers still has those moments where he looks elite and he still has really special abilities, but it seems like he's starting to teeter off at this point in his career. And same with Tom Brady. I don't think he was the Tom Brady that we always knew last season, and I don't think that the move over to Tampa Bay is going to return him to an elite quarterback status. So I'm going to put him in that borderline elite tier where you have someone that I really don't think should be in that tier in Phillip Rivers. So why is Phillip Rivers that high on your list?
So the reason I think Phillip Rivers is in the borderline elite tier is that he is a very good quarterback. He just has his receivers are always injured. Keenan Allen consistently gets injured, and that's his top wideout. He just the evolution of their offense has been kind of a struggle. Their offensive line has been shaky. They don't really have a tight end. Their tight ends have always consistently been injured. Like, look at Eli Manning. Eli Manning really saw a degradation because his offensive line was trash, and suddenly he lost some of his playmakers, and then kind of injuries played a part. And Phillip Rivers has gone through just this process of trying to find a stable situation. They just moved to LA. It's been a really just revolving door of problems for him. I think he has the talent to be elite, and he can be at that level, but he just hasn't managed to get there, which is why I rank him in the borderline section. Like, if he had a really stable receiving core and his offensive line played consistently, his tight ends were healthy, I think he could be a phenomenal quarterback.
Well, heading into 2020, I just don't see him bouncing back in that way. I know he's now on the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts are a really good team. I think they have one of the best rosters in the NFL, but for me, I see him as a declining veteran, and I see two of those in this league, which is why I put him and Ben Roethlisberger in a tier of their own as a declining veterans. Same thing with Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think he was playing all that great before he got injured. I think he was playing pretty poorly, and I don't see him returning and all of a sudden taking his flaws away and becoming a star quarterback again. I think both of those two are past their primes, and probably by season's end, they'll be contemplating or already confirmed to be retiring.
Right. And just to bounce back to my elite section really quickly, you mentioned Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers not worthy of being in that category. I think Tom Brady is perennially, if that's even a word, going to be in the elite category simply because his mental attributes are so good. Like he mentally is arguably the best quarterback to ever play the game. The way he runs his system, the way he diagnoses coverages, the only thing that is degrading is his physical attributes, like his arm strength and his mobility, and having a poor offensive line last year that wasn't the best. He had to move around the pocket a little bit more than he's used to, and those are things you can't supplement that when you're actually getting worse physically. But mentally, he's still extremely strong. I think the Buccaneers are going to have a lot of weapons to utilize for him, way more than they do in New England. Think about their wide receiver corps last year was garbage. Now they have O.J. Howard, they have Mike Evans, they have Chris Godwin. I think they signed a few other guys too. I mean,
Gronk,
they're running backs. They have
now.
Gronk now. Like, think about this. Like, he has so many weapons. All those guys he didn't have last year, and they still made the playoffs. I think he still deserves to be in that elite category. As for Aaron Rodgers, I think Rodgers is another guy that's been hit by injury, and mainly because his offensive line has been garbage. And his wide receivers last year, think about who they were. He didn't really have anybody. He had like Geronimo Allison was his top target. I mean, he had Devontae Adams, but he missed a few games. But when you have like one top wideout and then everybody else is kind of like at a third, fourth tier level, suddenly it's like, okay, you don't really expect them. You can't expect your number one guy to dominate when the defense is game planning around them. And then his running backs also got injured. I forget, Aaron Jones was injured for a few weeks, in concussion, I think. But when those things happen, you can't supplement it all the times. Aaron Rodgers is really good, but at the end of the day, there's no quarterback in the league that can supplement having no playmakers.
Yeah, I mean, with Tom Brady, of course, I think he's the greatest quarterback of all time, but I just think at this point, yeah, he does have a lot of talent around him, so I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps up to be an elite quarterback again this season. I just think that his play is starting to decrease, so I'd put him in that borderline elite. And with Aaron Rodgers, I feel like he just didn't look like the same player last year. He missed a lot of throws that he would usually make. He didn't really have that explosiveness that we were used to seeing him have. And obviously the supporting cast, like you said, wasn't there, but I don't see it being there this year either. I don't really think that they went out in free agency in the draft and prioritized getting him playmakers. And I know a lot of fans of the Packers are very frustrated by that, and I think they should be, because they need more playmakers, but they ended up just not getting them. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't see him really having that bounce back and becoming an elite quarterback again, but it wouldn't shock me. And Drew Brees, we both have him in the elite range. I almost put him in borderline elite just because he's getting older, and I don't know. This could be the year where his play drops off, but he's always going to be elite. I think this should be his last season, though, it looks like. And in the star tier, I have a lot more players there than you do. So you have Jimmy Garoppolo there. I just noticed that, which is much different from what I have. So what do you classify to be a star? Why are our lists so different there?
I think Garoppolo is a kind of a similar quarterback to Tom Brady. They're very systematic in their style of play. Mm-hmm. Quick throws, very scheme oriented. They're not like Patrick Mahomes where he's running around for 10 minutes and then he throws it to Tyreek Hill 70 yards downfield. Mm-hmm. They're very, very mentally precise in the way they play the game. And I think that Garoppolo is coming off a good season. I think he's only going to build on that if he can remain healthy. He's had some roadblocks in the way. The ACL tear 2 years ago, like that was a major thing that kind of set him back a lot. Bouncing back and making it to the Super Bowl is a big one. Making sure that he's good at audibling at the line of scrimmage is important. I think he learned a lot from Brady, and I believe he is in that start category just based on his mental attributes. He has the physical attributes to do it. I think that the scheme is very run heavy, which helps him a lot. But I think that they added another wide receiver this year, didn't they?
Ayuk, right? Brandon Ayuk?
Yep, they have Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona. So that's another big add for them. And then, of course, I have Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford in the star category.
Yeah, I love Matthew Stafford. I really think he is a star, and I think that if he were able to stay healthy last year and play the full season, he'd probably be in my borderline elite tier because he was really balling out, and I think that he is like a great quarterback who's just always been dealt a bad hand. So, and then with Jimmy Garoppolo, like I see what you're saying, but to me it's kind of like he's not going to propel that team to the Super Bowl victory like we saw in the Super Bowl. I think that he almost held them back in a way. And I don't think he was really like a burden to the team, but he definitely didn't push them
Sure.
that much further. And even throughout the playoffs, because they were just running the ball for 200 yards a game. So I wouldn't put him in the
Right.
star. I have him as an average quarterback because of that. I think that he's, just kind of a plainly average player. And I have Kirk Cousins in the star. You have him as average. I'll say Kirk Cousins, I get the argument for him being a star or being average, but the guy kind of has a cannon of an arm, and he does
Hmm.
play really well in some games, but when he really needs to step up, he doesn't. So maybe that
Hmm.
could be the argument for him not being a star, but I think that he is consistently pretty good. Dak Prescott, I think after last season, he really proved that he is blossoming into one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I get star potential though. Maybe he hasn't fully proven himself, and kind of the same thing with Carson Wentz. So I could see that. But then again, we have another pretty big disagreement here with Ryan Tannehill. You have him as average. I mean, after last season, after watching what he did, I don't know how you could put him in average. So I'm going to need some explanation on that one.
So the reason I put Ryan Tannehill in the average category is because I don't want to take 1 year of production and equate that to being star potential, or rather star category. I'm looking at that as if I need to see another good season from him before I group him in. He's had enough time in the league to prove to me that he is a star. He's only had one good season,
That's fair.
behind a good offensive line, a great running back in Derrick Henry, and one of the best defenses in the league, creating turnovers, giving him more opportunity, and keeping him on the field to actually succeed. So that's kind of where my head's at. I want to see one more good season, and then I will elevate him to that level. But to touch on Kirk Cousins, I'm trying to use him as like an average system. I see him, like you said, he consistently plays well against like lesser talent, and
Mm.
then in big games he folds and he crumbles. And I'm looking at that and saying, if I mesh those two together, I get an average player, because a star player dominates in those good games. In those
Yeah.
important games, they play well. They can carry the offense. They can supplement weaknesses, and he just doesn't do that. So I'm looking at it like, okay, he's not a star, and he's not terrible. He's not serviceable, so he's average in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I could agree with actually both of the points you made, but with Tannehill, I don't know. I always thought that he was decent in Miami. He was just always dealt a bad hand again, but like a really bad hand. I thought that he went through really terrible coaching staffs and really bad offensive systems and player personnel around him. So I think now that he's finally gotten a good opportunity, he's shown what he was always capable of to me. So then when we go to the star potential tier, I kind of split those into two tiers. I kind of made my predictions for who I think will be a star and who I think won't be a star. So I think the stars of the group are Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, Tua Tagovailoa, and Baker Mayfield. While I don't necessarily see star potential um, with Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Dwayne Haskins, and Gardner Minshew. I really like Drew Lock, so I know you have him in average, and you don't see the star potential, but I have to wholeheartedly disagree. I love Drew Lock's game. I think that he could be similar to Patrick Mahomes, never on that level, but he could be that same playing
Mhm.
style where he does become a gunslinger and some risky things and throw some interceptions, but I think that he's so accurate too and has a good processor where he will actually be a star in this league, close to like that elite level later on in his career.
Right. And I see what you're saying with Drew Lock. And the reason I put him in the average category is his team doesn't have that much talent around him. Like his best receiver, I think, is Cortland Sutton.
Well, they
And
added Jerry Judy, so
oh, okay. So that's a big thing. Adding
yeah,
Jerry Jeudy is going to help him a ton. And Drew Lock does have an absolute cannon of an arm, which is
yeah.
exciting for Denver fans, especially. I think he has the potential. I haven't seen enough of him, so I could be totally wrong. Last year, I don't really know what his numbers look like, but I imagine he put some decent numbers up after, who was it that went down? Joe Flacco?
Flacco, I
Where's
believe, yeah,
Joe?
yeah.
So when Flacco went down, Locke stepped in, and I think he performed like relatively well. So I'm putting him in average for now because I just haven't seen enough of his sample size, but that doesn't mean he can't be a star. I think, like you said, he has the tangible traits to become one. He has the arm strength. He has the talent around him in Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and Noah Fant in his tight end. They have a lot of really good players. So I'm hoping he plays well. I have nothing against the Broncos as a Giants fan. They're kind of just there all the time, and just kind of watching them succeed. Hopefully, will be fun to watch another really young quarterback develop in the league. I think the more talent, the better. It brings better imagery or just images to the league in itself, and really helps everything develop. More fans come into play. It's really makes it all together more fun. But I'm looking at my list, and what do you think about Andy Dalton at this point?
I think he's serviceable. I think Dalton could start some games, but he's not going to propel a team to win games. I think that right now he is a backup, but I think that if he were on another team, he could do well as a starter, but he's not going to be, a really good quarterback and bring a team to the playoffs at this point in his career. I think he's not going to lose a game, but he's definitely not going to win a game.
Right. That's fair. I think Andy Dalton's kind of like that backup kind of guy too at this point. I think he's an average player, but behind Dak Prescott, he's not going to do anything.
Right.
He's just kind of buying his time, hopefully maybe earning a secondary contract next year. But I think he's probably a career backup for the rest of his time in the NFL. I still think he could play if need be, which is why they brought him in the first place. They must feel like they can compete. So if Dak goes down, they have someone that can supplement that. But a few other guys I have in the average category: Tyrod Taylor, Josh Allen, Kyle Allen. Also got Jacoby Brissett, I think I have in there, and Derek Carr and Big Ben. I think that the only guys that might be a little bit better, I think Brissett has star potential. I think he could get there. I also have Jalen Hurts there, I believe, as well. But Tyrod Taylor is one of those guys. I've always really liked Tyrod Taylor. I don't know why he's never received his fair share of opportunity. But he can run, he can throw. I like him. They just really haven't developed him into a pocket passer. They kind of asked him to be like a de facto Mike Vick, and I don't think that's actually his style of play. I think he actually is a good passer when he's standing in the pocket.
Yeah, I agree. I just think at this point in his career, serviceable is what I put him under because I don't see him actually getting a real opportunity. I think he's always just going to be that guy who plays and then they substitute him out with a rookie. It kind of sucks for him because, he was pretty decent with the Buffalo Bills. He got them to the playoffs that one season, and they were a pretty solid team, but he definitely wasn't that star player that's going to propel them to those playoff wins, but he's definitely decent enough to get a team to the playoffs if everything is going right around him. But I also have to point out that you have Nick Foles and star potential, and that one really confuses me, so I need a little explanation on that.
Nick Foles.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, okay. Well, Nick Foles is an interesting guy because last year when we saw him with the Jags, he was looking pretty good before he got injured. Like, he is a good quarterback. The injury hurt him, and we saw what he did with the Eagles a few years ago. I think overall he has the potential to be a very good player in the NFL. Those roadblocks again. Some players they hit, some players they don't. He's just kind of like Jameis Winston. Like Jameis Winston, in my opinion, he can sling a ton of touchdowns. He racks up numbers in that category, but he throws equivalent amount of interceptions. If he cuts back on those interceptions, he's an elite player. Like he is not elite maybe, but borderline. He's a very good quarterback. He can move in the pocket. He's strong. If you cut down those interceptions, suddenly he's at like 35, 40 touchdowns, and he has like 10 interceptions. You're like, that's a really good quarterback. That's just the issue. He loses his sight. He also wears contacts, his bad vision. If he just got LASIK, he would probably be a lot better.
I think he did. He recently did get LASIK eye surgery. Yeah. I see that too with Winston. I think that if he would have just gotten coached better earlier on in his career and got those interceptions down, he could have been a borderline elite player. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. But I do think that now that he's going to be sitting behind Drew Brees for a year and learning from Sean Payton, there is potential there for him to take over once Drew Brees retires and maybe become a starting quarterback and maybe become a very good quarterback with that proper coaching. But I guess we'll have to see. And I want to know, what do you think about Tua Tagovailoa? Because obviously he had so much talent over at Alabama, but is he going to be a star in this league? Do you think so? I know that hip injury is really serious and it might hold him back.
Right. I mean, with Tagovailoa, he can move, he can throw, he's accurate, he's strong. Luckily, the hip injury, I've heard that it's not going to be a big issue moving forward. He completely healed from it, which is very lucky because it looked extremely serious when it happened. But overall, I think he has the potential to be a star, which is why I put him in star potential category. He has all the tangible traits. He can do it all. And he's a lefty, which makes it even more interesting. Just having it, so essentially right tackle is now like the left tackle for normal quarterbacks. His blind side is on the right side. It's definitely interesting. I think that it's going to take some time for him to adapt. I mean, he's with Miami, right? So it's going to be
Yeah.
kind of a struggle. They suck really badly, and they don't have any offensive linemen. I would be kind of worried for him to get injured again. Honestly, that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, that concerns me too. He does have Eric Flowers as his
Ugh.
offensive guard, so that's pretty scary right there. So now I wanna get to probably your most controversial take here, which is going to be fun to talk about. It's in the bust category. Dwayne Haskins. If any Redskins fan sees this, they're going to probably destroy us in the comment section. But I'm curious to know what's your thought process behind putting him there. I have him without star potential, but I definitely think he could be an average, decent starter in the league. I don't see him as a bust, so I want to hear your take.
Well, I'm obviously biased in this situation, being a Giants fan. But when I look at Dwayne Haskins, I look at a pure pocket passer. He is not a guy that should be running. He's not a mobile quarterback by any means. He kind of reminds me of a Jameis Winston with a little bit more size. And that's kind of like if the Redskins don't have a good offensive line, he's gonna struggle. He's not. He's gonna get hit. It's not gonna be the best for him. I know he can handle taking hits, but I just don't really see him developing into like a star player. Maybe he'll land in the average category, like you said, but he saw some really bad struggles last year, and those type of things don't always go away. It was pretty bad. I know he looked a little bit better toward the end of the season, but that was kind of when his team was getting more momentum. I think this year will be a big indication of what he's capable of. But we're looking like at Daniel Jones compared to Dwayne Haskins. Jones coming from Duke and Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State, and you're like, okay, the guy from Ohio State should play significantly better. Like that's just like something that should be guaranteed or close to it, if not. And Jones blew him out of the water, in my opinion. Like, he looked way more poised in the pocket. Obviously, the fumbles were an issue, but that's more of a ball security thing. He added 9 pounds this summer. I think that Jones is going to have the better career, and he can move better. I'm just afraid because Washington does not have a good offensive line, and they're having all those issues with Trent Williams, who's not going to play for them. So I think it's kind of
Well, they traded him,
down.
so yeah.
Oh, they traded him, so he's
Right.
so he's gone,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a big issue for them. If they have some injuries there, and they did last season, and clearly it affected him,
Mm-hmm.
he could fall into a habitual thing like Eli Manning did, just getting hit over and over and over again. You're just getting scared every time there's a blitz. You're like, I'm gonna get hit, and then suddenly you're not going through your progressions correctly, and then your whole career is kind of thrown into on a bad course. That's where I think it could end up going, and that's why I'm kind of putting him in the bust section. But I think he could make it to the average section as well.
Yeah, I could see that. And the thing with Dwayne Haskins is I do think he had some games and some throws last season that really wowed you, and he showed some real star potential. But the thing with him is, all that talk that we heard about him not being able to read playbooks and not putting in the extra work that he needs to be a star quarterback. That is kind of what scares me about Dwayne Haskins. When you're hearing things like that from a rookie quarterback where he's not reading the playbook and not training to get better,
Right.
it reminds me of Johnny Manziel, and we know how that worked out. So that's kind of how I see things going for Dwayne Haskins. I don't see him really finding stardom with a bad work ethic already this early in his career. So that's my take on Haskins. I definitely think there's potential though. And Gardner Minshew, let's see, you have him as serviceable. I have him as a young a young player without star potential. So I guess we're kind of the same there. But you don't have Josh Rosen as a bust just yet. Personally, he was someone that I really liked a lot coming out of college, but he's proven me wrong in every opportunity that he's gotten. He's been dealt the absolute worst hand, but he really hasn't done anything to show that he could do better with a better hand anyway. So what do you think of Josh Rosen?
Josh Rosen, I agree. Coming out of school, he had the potential to be a quality player. He has the accuracy, he has the arm strength. He can take hits. I just don't think at this point he is in a position to succeed. He's still with Miami, right?
Correct.
So we already know he's already in a bad position, just like Tua. That being said, I think it's going to take a lot for him to reverse the trend that he's already on. They have not given him a good offensive line. He has Devontae Parker as his top wideout. It's not looking too hot for him at the moment. And with a younger guy in Tua that will probably take over in year one, if not year two. I think Rosen needs way more just playmakers around him, to actually
Right.
succeed. I think he'll be serviceable. He'll probably land in like a solid backup spot in a few years. And that's kind of where I see this going. It looks like the Miami Dolphins finally finalized like their quarterback unit, and now they're going to start, plugging in the other positions. But they're just so bad at every other position. It could take 5 years for them to get there.
I don't think they're that far off personally, but I also think with Josh Rosen, I don't see him really getting another opportunity anywhere else as in a starting role. I think he'll always just be looked at as a backup by the rest of the league. And you also have Justin Herbert as serviceable. I have him as young without star potential, so I guess we're kind of in the same right. I think that he's very conservative and he could be an average quarterback, but I don't see him being a star in this league at this point. So what is your take on Herbert? And basically, before we wrap up, if you see anything else that you disagree with on my list, I want to hear it before we get going.
Absolutely. So with Herbert, I like his tangible traits. He's a physical quarterback. He has a good arm. He's accurate. What I don't really like is he had a really good offensive line at Oregon. They have one of the top
Yeah, he
guys
did.
coming in to the draft next year, and we got Shane Lemieux from them who played guard there. So having a good offensive line in college at Oregon is good for him. That's going to be super helpful. I think that he can be a good quarterback. I just don't feel it. It's like just a gut instinct with him. I just don't feel comfortable with him for some reason. His windup is slow. He's not a quick thrower. It just
Doesn't have a
doesn't
cannon
feel
though.
right. He does have a cannon. He's kind of like Drew Lock, but I just don't feel it with him. It's just like a gut thing. I don't know.
Okay, I see that. I agree. And I'll also say because we didn't talk too much about Daniel Jones. I'll just say young with star potential for sure. And I think that this year, if he cuts down those fumbles, everything that we think is going to happen does with the better offensive line and coaching staff. We could see him jump into that star tier in year three, and that's what we're hoping for. So, any final thoughts on our tier lists from you, Alex?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about Daniel Jones. I love him, and I think that he is going to develop exponentially this year with a better offensive line. I just wrote a lot about Mark Colombo with the offensive line coordinator coming in from Dallas. He is a fierce guy. People are scared of him. Sean O'Hara, Chris Snee, they're all like, this guy is terrifying, and he is a disciplinary. He's going to come in and really change up that unit. He's going to make sure people are doing the right thing and following the cultural initiative that he puts in place. I really like what he's going to do for them. And I think Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are going to benefit exponentially. Jones threw 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions last year. He fumbled 18 times, losing 11 of them. Those turnover numbers have to go down. I think they will. He's getting stronger, better protection. Saquon Barkley will be healthy. And they have Darius Slayton going into his second year. Some good players. They have some good talent to work with. And if everyone's healthy, Evan Ingram specifically, they should be in a decent place moving forward. And I think Jones can only improve from there, which is why I think he has star potential. It really just boils down to the offensive line and protecting him. That's the biggest thing in my opinion.
I agree. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to watch some Giants football. Hopefully, it still happens in September. But anyway, guys, thanks for viewing. Definitely leave your opinions down in the comments. Let us know what you think about our tiers. And if you want to make your own tier list and tweet it at us at Fireside Giants on Twitter, we'd be more than happy to check out your tier and make a little comparison and respond and have a little fun football debate. So anyway, guys, make sure that you tune in to the Madden live stream later this week. We'll post it on the community section, exactly what time and what night that's happening. Can't wait to give Alex this work in Madden. It's going to be exciting,
We'll see
guys.
about that.
Yeah. Thanks for viewing, guys. Have a good one.